In bygone ages, mountains were said to house warriors. In this age, the mountain has become the warrior. This is the description given to Atlas, and to be fair, pretty accurate since all of his abilities revolve around stone. He is a frame that, to be honest, I was not the most familiar with prior to this video. I decided I wanted to review Atlas as I hadn't played him, and I have a list of frames in a Word document for a series I'm going to be starting later called How to Fix. And Atlas was on that list, as when I did play him, he did not feel that good. So I was going to play him again, get a feel for his kit, and then make a video on how to fix the issues with it. The issue is Atlas has one playstyle baseline, and this generally seems to be based around petrifying enemies and then destroying them with his landslide punch for the armor bonus and heal. This was not how I had played Atlas prior, but let me tell you right now, that one playstyle is some of the most fun I have had doing research for a frame and even playing a frame. I'm not joking when I tell you he is competing right now with Nidus for the most fun frame that I have ever played. To the point that I stopped taking notes because I was having so much fun with this build that I forgot I was testing builds for a video. Atlas was a frame that I once considered bad, horrible even. I considered Rumblers to be his selling point, and they are lackluster at best, but as it stands right now, this frame has picked up as one of the most fun frames I have ever played. To the point, I do sincerely want to change my top 5 frame video that I put. I may love Atlas, and spoiler alert, I do. However, there are some things in his kit that would see changing if DE ever decided to. He is in a perfect spot as is, and DE has no need to touch him, but if they were to, there are really only two abilities I could see them doing it to, that being his 2 and his 4. With that out of the way, let's get into his kit. Landslide is Atlas's best ability, period. In tandem with his 3, this ability dominates even Steel Path enemies. The background footage that you're currently seeing is a level 103 mission in the Steel Path. Not the highest mission you can exactly go, but as you may have noticed, enemies don't exactly phase Atlas, as the pen may be mightier than the sword as they say, but these hands are the mightiest of all. The thing with Landslide Punch is its base damage is poor, but it's one of those abilities that scales off of melee mods without telling you it scales off of melee mods. So get yourself a stat stick and get ready to start pressing 1, because warping to enemies and punching them so hard the shock wave kills almost everything behind it is some of the most fun I've had in this game in a while. Petrified enemies from his 3 take increased damage, drop rubble when they are killed, which heals Atlas, and grants him increased armor up to a maximum of 1500 armor. This is probably one of the smartest forms of armor gain in this game, as if you have taken health damage, you will get a heal from the rubble. If you have full health, you will receive the bonus armor. And while dashing to the target with your 1, you are immune to damage, so taking health damage is minimal, allowing the armor to stack fairly quickly to make you one tanky boy. Tectonics summon a rock wall similar to the Grineer blunts that block bullets. However, this wall likes to fight back, radiating a slash proc every time it is damaged in a radius around it. Now, this ability is probably his most useless ability, and that's saying something as it's still useful as hell, as it's an improv form of cover if you need it, and can be recast to send it tumbling forward, knocking down enemies, and exploding on contact with a wall or other terrain for a bit of damage. If you cast Petrify on this wall, it will go significantly faster during the tumble. Again, this is Atlas's worst ability, but with it, it's still useful and even good in some scenarios. Petrify does exactly as the name implies. It petrifies enemies in rock, and can be used to petrify the tectonic bulwarks. And upon killing a shattered enemy, they will drop rubble for Atlas to pick up and use to gain armor and health, as I stated prior. This is his 1 in his 1-2 combo, as Petrify then Landslide is, like I said, his only real viable playstyle, but it's fun as hell, so I can't really complain. Upon casting Petrify, your Rumblers are healed for 100% of their base health value, however this does not affect the augment that turns you into a Rumbler that I will go over later. Rumblers are, quite frankly, a meme, plain and simple. Summonable minions in this game aren't the best, with the exception of Wukong's clone and the duality augment for Equinox. However, these Rumblers, though a meme, are still kinda cool, as they operate independently from Atlas, so you can be slamming into one group of enemies and your Rumblers will got your back. They have decent enough health pool and armor that they can tank a bit of punishment before collapsing, and bonus, they drop rubble on death for Atlas to pick up, so that's another way to get rubble, though not very practical, and it's not like you really need it. Atlas has an array of augments at his disposal, in fact 6, if you count the PvP and PvE usable augment that he has, and I use 2 of his augments in my main build. I own 3 of them because I like to change one out every now and again for some fun if I'm in a lower level mission, but his augments are Path of Statues, Tectonic Fracture or Gaze, Titanic Rumble, Rubble Heap, and Rumbled. The ones I use I'll be going over first, as I think that they are fairly good and they need a little explanation. Rumbled is a Rumbler PvP augment that can be used in both PvP and PvE, where Atlas becomes the Rumbler with rock armor and can absorb 300% of his max HP worth in damage. Now, some things to note about this. In Rumbler form, you are not able to access normal melee or guns. You instead throw rocks and punch the ground just like the Rumblers do. These do negligible damage, however, I use it because that rock armor value scales with power strength, so my armor tends to sit around 552% of my max HP rather than the 300, and it makes her survivability just that much more strong. Sometimes, however, I like to exchange this augment for Titanic Rumbler, which instead of 2 rock bros, you create one big rock bro with 300% of the health and deals 300% damage that the 2 rock bros would deal. You can recast this ability to make him slam the floor and knock down nearby enemies for some extra CC. Not that he needs it with all the other aforementioned CC in his kit, but more CC is more CC, and Atlas is classified as a jack of all trades, so be that as it is, CC is always nice. Rubble Heap is the last main augment I use on him, and this is what cemented my build for him and made him an absolute blast to play. It's a passive augment that says when you're above 1500 rubble, Landslide will cost no energy, deal 2 times the damage, and happen twice as fast. Achieving 1400 rubble is not a difficult feat, as yes, your rubble degrades over time, but I legitimately am in a permanent state of free casting when I'm in an endless mission because there's so many enemies that it ends up not really mattering. Now, those are the augments that I use. Here are the rest of them. Again, not bad augments, just not ones that I use. Path of Statues, I would put on if I could make room for it, but I can't right now, so that is what it is. When you use Landslide, you leave a trail for 12 seconds that petrifies enemies for 6 seconds. Free petrification is always nice to have, especially in tandem with Rubble Heap for infinite fee petrifies. Tectonic Fracture augment is not that great. It makes his 2 make 3 walls instead of the 1 wall. They all have the base 100% health, but they cannot be turned into boulders or sent outwards. This is okay, like I said, but it's not really worth the mod slot. And last but not least, we have Gaze. It's a Petrify augment that automatically scans petrified enemies into your codex and gives them a 25% chance to drop additional loot on death. Once again, a mod I would use if I had the space for it, but unfortunately my build is pretty tight as is. Speaking of my build, here it is. This is a build I'm using in the footage that's been playing, and overall I think it works fairly well. A lot of strength and range, so you can petrify as many enemies as possible and make your punches hit really hard, but making sure not to skip on the efficiency or duration too much, as they make sure that enemies remain petrified long enough to kill them for the rubble, and they make it so petrified does not cost your entire energy bar to cast. And with that, that's Atlas. The absolute mountain of a frame, who I have deemed Preston the Frame. As whenever I'm playing with my friend Preston, or those of you who have been in my stream know him as Sir Banana, he is always about punchies. I would like to close this by saying, though this frame is a goddamn delight, I unfortunately cannot recommend him to new players, as his rubble management in low-level content is actually fairly difficult, and even in mid-tier content, it's kinda hard if you're not smart about it, and his acquisition is a giant pain in the ass without a right Arcwing setup, and a lot of new players don't invest too much into their Arcwing, as Arcwing is not greatly expanded upon, and the missions themselves aren't exactly a blast to play. However, you vets out there have no excuse. This frame is a balls to the walls, jack of all trades class with damage capabilities that put him capable of soloing Steel Path with ease, even potentially rivaling Nidus in that regard. Farm him or his Prime. Personally, I found the Prime easier than the base variant, and I would like to thank you all for watching, and now if you'll excuse me, I'm off to go smack the shit out of some more Corpus.